Okay, you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Foster, and I'm the chair of the board of directors of TO Live. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to call this special meeting of the board of directors of TO Live to order. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members and staff calling in or connecting by video conference or attending in person at Toronto City Hall. Because we are meeting remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube. I would like to request that all staff keep their video turned off unless they need to speak or answer questions. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate on each item and during votes. I also ask that all members and staff keep their microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question or speak. When voting on an item or motion, I ask that members make sure that your video is turned on and raise your hands to indicate your vote. I would now like to ask John Filion if he would be kind enough to read the land acknowledgement. John.
Thank you. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the board would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gathered today is the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and currently the Mississaugas of the New Credit. We acknowledge these nations and all other Indigenous nations, including the Métis, who have called the land on which Toronto was built home. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, learn, and create on this land together.
Thank you, John. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. Seeing none, we'll continue. This is a special meeting with one item, and since it is a special meeting, there will be no new items added. CT 16.1, composition and appointment of additional members to the TO Live St. Lawrence Centre Redevelopment Committee. This is a letter from Kevin Garland, the chair of St. Lawrence Centre Redevelopment Committee, with a recommendation and a confidential attachment. Kevin, could you provide us with an overview on the item? Then after a brief discussion, we will go into closed session. Kevin?
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Well, following in the footsteps of Gabe and his wonderful digital transformation committee, the redevelopment committee realized that, first of all, we had lost a member and we needed to increase our quorum quota. And secondly, that it would be really excellent if we could add some diversity to the committee, particularly if we could better reflect the city that we serve, as well as provide some further expertise in the areas that are most necessary on this committee. And to that end, we add additional members to the redevelopment committee from outside the board. And as you know, the current composition of the committee is Councillor Gary Crawford, Councillor John Filion, Robert Foster, Stephen Levitan, and myself, and there is one vacancy. So I'm proposing that we increase the committee composition by 5, who will be non-members of the board, for a total of 11. And you will have seen on the confidential attachment that we've listed 3 individuals with biographies included so that we can consider them today. I'd like to, first of all, thank very much members of the committee, Leslie Lester, and also the city manager's staff, who were very helpful in sourcing these really excellent people. So today I'm proposing that the remaining, that we add these 3 members today with your approval, but that we then appoint to fill the remaining vacancies as early as possible in 2021. Once our other board vacancies have been filled themselves. So if these changes are approved, the new quorum will be 6 and the committee will have 8 of 11 members to carry on with meetings until the vacancies are filled. So I'm assuming that everybody has read and looked at the bios of the 3 people They're all really excellent people, and I guess if we're going to discuss them in more personal terms, we probably need to go on camera. But does anyone have any questions on the idea underlying this motion?
No?
I have a quick question. Is a quorum of 6 when there's only 8 members functional? I mean, I'm looking at right now, we're barely a quorum here today on this meeting. So you're setting yourself up for a lot of deferred meetings.
Well, I guess we're hopeful that we'll have new board members in early January of 2021, and we can then make the whole process a lot more robust. I mean, that's part of the issue we have now.
Right. Paul, I might point out we have 9 people on this call and quorum 7. So, anyway, it's a good point, Kevin. I'm sure you're going to add to your committee.
We'd very much like to. We're actually very actively looking for new members now, again, to broaden the diversity of the group.
Okay. All right.
I think it's sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabe.
For those of you that aren't on the digital committee that don't get to see what it's like to have non-board members in a committee, I just want to say, there's a little bit of onboarding. You need to, teach them about the organization and all this kind of stuff. But once that's passed, it's critical and super helpful to have members there that complement the skills that we don't have. Like in the digital committee, more than half the time, the non-board members are the ones speaking, adding value. If we need skills in construction and planning and things that we might not necessarily have, I think it's a really good idea to start augmenting these committees from the outside.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I raised the point, Gabe, because we have had occasional struggles to get a full quorum on that committee because the outsiders have other priorities, and this is the only connection they have to TO Live. So it's a much more tenuous connection. That's all. Just don't want you to go through the pain and suffering of having to reschedule constantly.
Thanks, Paul. Much appreciated.
Yeah, that is true. The last meeting, for example, we barely made it. We started 15 minutes late. We picked some pretty serious hitters on the digital committee, and they're not always available. So that's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess with any luck, when we add the new board members in the new year, some of them will fit the criteria that we need for this committee as well, which would help in that they'll have a stronger attachment to the organization.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add a comment. I think it goes the other way too, Kevin. There may be some new members of that committee that might want to step up and join the board as well when there's a vacancy.
That would be wonderful. I mean, I'm very impressed. And I want to thank you in particular for suggesting Gabe Lindo. Sorry, the person I wasn't supposed to mention. One of the excellent people who has been nominated to this committee.
So may I suggest that we go into closed session?
Before I blow it up?
Well, there's some other things I want to make too. I would like to now ask the clerk to display a motion to go into closed session, which I will read out loud as well. That the Board of Directors of TO Live recess its public session to meet in closed session to consider the item as it contains personal matters about identifiable individuals. So moved. Call for a vote. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Unanimously approved. I will now ask the clerk to close the meeting to members of the public and to only provide access to members and appropriate staff for the closed session portion of this meeting. In addition, the live stream will be suspended until the closed session is over. Members and staff, I would also remind you to arrange your surroundings so that no other person observes any part of the closed session debate.
Okay, public session may resume, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We are now back in open session and we'll consider item 16.1 publicly once again. Are there any speakers? Kevin, would you like to move the recommendation in your letter?
I'd be delighted to, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming it'll be soon up on our screens, but let me just read it out. Our redevelopment committee recommends that the board of directors of TO Live, number one, increase the membership of the TO Live St. Lawrence Center redevelopment committee from up to 6 members to 11 members by adding 5 individuals who are non-members of the board. Secondly, that we appoint the 3 individuals who are identified in the confidential attachment 1 to the TO Live St. Lawrence Center redevelopment committee. Thirdly, direct that the names of those individuals and their biographies be made public once we have appointed them. And fourthly, direct the chief executive officer to bring forward a report to fill the remaining vacancies in early 2021.
Can I make a comment on number, I can't read it very well on my screen. Number 1, I think it is 5 individuals who are not members of the board, but they don't have to remain not members of the board. This is just at this time.
That's
Correct.
a good point, Paul. Yeah.
Because if they become members of the board, this can't mean if they become members of the board, they got to step off the
Can't
committee.
be on it. No, that's right. So
So maybe just change
tweak that
to
wording.
not necessarily members of the board as opposed to not members of the board.
Oh, yes, who may not be members or something like that.
Who are not necessarily members of the board.
Yeah.
And I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you can just end the sentence after the word individuals.
Why don't we say individuals who may be non-members of the board? Pretty easy.
Sure.
Individuals who may be
Maybe non-members.
board. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that amendment to the motion? In that case.
Okay. Is there any speakers or further discussion?
I've got a really quick while we're here. Steve, if you could put me in touch with your recommendation candidate. We have an opening in digital as well. I think that person might be a great fit. I don't know if they'd be willing, but while we're here, I'll just say it really quick. Yeah.
He's just moved to a new job. Not that yours wouldn't be seductive.
Steve Levitan has become our chief headhunter. Okay, no further speakers. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Unanimously carried. Thank you. That concludes our business for today. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Well,
Good. Great.
30 minutes. Wow.
Thanks, everyone.
wow.
Bye, everyone.